Welcome to the LRC Racing and Passing Guideline video. Today I will show you some unsportsmanlike behavior and common mistakes that should be avoided, and this will set the standard for all LRC lobbies. The goal is for drivers to learn from these mistakes and when practicing with LRC, gain experience that will help them avoid them. Dive bombing is one of the most common maneuvers that should be avoided. This is when you attempt to race the car ahead to the apex to complete an overtaking maneuver. A move is considered a dive bomb when there is not significant overlap in the braking zone and the overlap only happens at the last possible moment at turn-in, and the driver ahead has to take avoiding action to avoid the maneuver or contact is made where they do not have any racing room left on the outside of the corner. Mistakes do happen, and if you find yourself missing your braking point and accidentally making a dive bomb maneuver, simply slow down and let the car have the position back and try again to overtake them cleanly. Another maneuver that should be avoided is attempting to overtake far off the racing line in the blind spot of the car ahead. This will often cause your racing lines to overlap each other, which will most likely lead to contact. Ideally, you want your lines to be offset from each other, but very similar so that there's always room for the other car beside you and vice versa. This technique will lead to closer racing, and if there is contact, it will most likely be minor, reducing the chance of a major crash. And to avoid dive bombing, make sure you're close enough to establish overlap in the braking zone with the car you're overtaking. This will allow you to justify racing room and make sure you always give room for them in return. Outside passing can occur, but make sure you create enough overlap to justify the space you're trying to occupy. Often the car ahead is not looking in their mirrors at these points, and it's always up to the car behind to overtake safely, so any contact made in these situations is more often than not the overtaking car's fault. Also avoid attempting to overtake into a narrow gap when there is much more room on the opposite side of the racetrack. It's often best to back out or move to the side of the track with more room available to you, even if that is not your ideal line. Always be aware of the fact that cars may be on different tires or different race strategies than you, and that means always providing room for them and being aware that they may need to brake earlier and be slower in the corners than you are. If you follow too close, it's very easy to make a mistake and rear end these cars, which is always your fault, and you should always give that position back. If you're unsure of the strategy of the car ahead of you, make sure you lift off or start braking before them and then adjust accordingly. You're always responsible for avoiding rear-ending the car ahead in the braking zone. Once overlap is established, ensure you are leaving racing room and do not run cars wide on track to hold a position. Ensure that once racing room is established for two cars, it is maintained by both until one is completely ahead or behind the other. The key to close racing is communicating intent. Make sure whether you are attacking or defending, you are always placing your car with intent on the racetrack to clearly show what part of the track you want to occupy in the near future. This means no last-minute changes of direction or last-minute moves before a braking zone. Always ensure you are maintaining the line you want to be on before the braking zone so the other car has a chance to place themselves appropriately. You'll often find that this leads to much better racing. You should never make a move just before a braking zone that would require a car behind to take avoiding action. This includes your one defensive move on a straightaway. It must be made early enough for the car behind to react appropriately. Do not brake late and avoid turning in for a corner to block a car from gaining a position. This is considered unsportsmanlike, along with weaving on the straightaway to block a car from overtaking. This is unacceptable. And that concludes our overview of the LRC Racing and Passing Guidelines. For both new and experienced drivers, LRC provides practice sessions where we can drill these types of maneuvers and help ensure we are ready to race fairly and cleanly when the time comes. To race competitively in LRC events, it is expected that you attend practice sessions to show your ability to follow these driving standards. And if you're a new driver, these practice sessions are designed to teach you these techniques so that you can be ready for competitive racing.